Welcome, first of all. For many of you, maybe this is the first tech huddle that you've been on. We hold these every single week, and basically what these are geared for is to provide a new solution or a new piece of tech every single week for you all, so that you always have a way to go and discover and learn some new things. This week we have Scott from GrandCare on doing our presentation. GrandCare has been around for a while, and I won't steal your thunder. But they've been around for a while, and I'm excited to see what's new. It's been a while since I've taken a look at it, so it should be a good one. For those of you that are on, if you could, maybe in the chat, if you're comfortable with it, just throw in the state that you're from. Kind of like, I like to get a sense on who's joining and that kind of thing. Also might help our presenters, so thank you all. So another thing, as people are joining, we do always, Scott, I keep everybody on mute just to keep the background noise down, and we do record this. So I'll invite people to throw their questions in kind of the chat. And then as you're talking, I'll be monitoring that, and I will, kind of jump in and repeat those questions to you.
Super, that sounds great.
And what part of Wisconsin are you in? You in Wisconsin too?
Yeah, we're in Wisconsin. We're in West Bend, Wisconsin, which is just about 45 minutes north of Milwaukee, 40 minutes north.
Yep, know it well. Well, I shouldn't say I know it well. I know where it is.
Yeah. It's a nice little town. I've been here for about 6 years, I guess. And for a town of 35,000 or so, it's got a surprising amount of good things to do and nice places to eat. And it's just a nice town.
Cool. Actually, in one of my previous roles with a previous company, we were serving an individual in West Bend. So pretty, yeah, yeah. It's a small world.
Yeah. Definitely.
Dropping things and seeing a few more people join. So for those of you that have just popped on, welcome to the today's Tech Huddle. My name is Dustin Wright. I'm the founder of Disability Cocoon, and welcome. Today should be pretty cool. We've got Scott from GrandCare, who's going to be our presenter, and I'm showing about 3 or 4 minutes until 12 o'clock Eastern. And I do like to kind of get these started a few minutes after, so we'll give everybody a few more minutes to join. And if you are joining or on right now, just go ahead and if you're comfortable, go ahead and throw in the chat box where you're from. Looks like we've got somebody on from Ohio that has said where they're from. Anybody else on? You can throw it just to me or to everyone, doesn't matter.
I've actually talked to a lot of people from Ohio, not since the tech summit that we did there with you guys. Lots of people from, I've talked to people from Wood County. I've talked to people from a bunch of different counties there who wanted to know more about whether they could use GrandCare in their county to serve the people that they serve. And of course, the answer is yes. But I've had some nice conversations with those people.
Yeah. Ohio is moving things along pretty quickly. They've infused some money to kind of hope to start to transform the landscape there into more of a tech-first mindset. So yeah, they're doing it. And lots of other states are kind of also kicking the tires on that and doing that too. So yeah, should be a good story.
I have a lot of activity also in Missouri. People have been talking to me quite a bit from that state. Yeah. So they seem to be with Ohio. They're kind of out front, at least as far as I can tell.
Yeah, they are. They've been pretty organized for several years now. And actually, we have somebody on, I see, from the department, from DODD. So welcome those folks from DODD.
Fantastic.
Ohio. Looks like we have a couple more people from Ohio, Muskegon County and Morgan County. We have somebody from Washington, D.C. Hi, Donald. So welcome, everyone. People will start to funnel in a lot more quickly here. I'm going to give everybody a few more. I can see on Scott's screen there that it is 10:58 Central, so 11:58 Eastern. We'll get started here in about 3 or 4 minutes. for those of you that may not be aware, we do record all of these tech huddles, and we actually put them into an on-demand tech fest. So we do tech fests, and tech fests are basically regional conferences that we hold around the United States, where it's all about disability technology, obviously. But we also do these tech huddles that you're on today, which are obviously online, real shorter, just to kind of give everybody a weekly update on new things that are happening. And we take all of the content, all of the recorded sessions from those tech fests around the country, plus all of these tech huddles that we do, and we put them into an on-demand tech fest. So we're trying to recreate that conference experience or this webinar type of experience in an on-demand format, so that people can come in and not have to, have time scheduled out of the office, or even have time scheduled to come attend something live like this, and they can continue to learn in that way. So we're trying to make it so that you can learn whenever you want and kind of wherever you want. And if you're a person that would prefer to kind of learn by yourself, you can do that. Or if you're a person that would prefer to go to an event live and kind of kick the tires and network, obviously that's very, very beneficial. You can do that as well. So just trying to create a bunch of different ways that people can kind of get plugged in and continue to learn here. So welcome to everyone. For those of you that may not have heard, if you could, as you join, just go ahead and throw in the chat box where you're from. State is fine. We're not looking for address or anything here. Just so we kind of get a sense on where people are coming from. So, and we will get going here in just a few minutes. I'm showing exactly 12 o'clock. For those of you that have been on, I apologize. I always do this, the rambling through talking before we get going. But for the new people, you will be muted when you join. Just we want to kind of control the background noise, and we are recording this. So as Scott, who's our presenter from GrandCare, as he starts talking here in just a few minutes, if you have questions for Scott as he's talking, please go ahead and throw those in the chat box. If you're new to Zoom, which is the platform that we're using, if you go to the very bottom of the Zoom window, there'll be a little bubble that says chat, and you just click on that, and I'm sure you'll figure out the rest. And you can just throw your questions in there. Scott, like I said, I'll keep an eye on that for you.
Thank you.
And I'll just kind of try to interrupt you at natural time. So looks like we have somebody on from California. Hi, Lauren. So we have East Coast DC all the way to West Coast California, and some other states in between. So
that's great.
Well, I do want to kind of keep us on track today and be cognizant of everybody's time. For those of you that, one last, I guess, announcement. Today's Tech Huddle will be kind of a transition into a new format for our Tech Huddles. For those of you that have been on before, we have always featured two presenters over an hour every Tuesday. So, two presenters each having 30 minutes. I wanted to kind of condense that down to one presenter for 30 minutes, so that we are not so tied down to a specific time frame, and hopefully people can start to engage more. And I'm going to change the format up a little bit. I'm going to, and Scott, this is not a surprise to you. This would be a surprise to you, but you don't have to follow this format. After today, all of the Tech Huddles will have a very different format, in that the first 5 minutes of a Tech Huddle will be an overview of that company and their technology and their solution. So for those of you that want to jump on, you're not sure if it's something, a tech that would apply to you or the people that you're serving, you can quickly find out in the first 5 minutes of a Tech Huddle if that's something that would apply to you. If it doesn't, you can drop off. If it does, then the next 25 minutes of the Tech Huddle, each presenter will go into detail about their company and their solution and how it benefits the people that we serve. So what we're going to do with those is, I think it's very important to have these nice 30-minute presentations that are recorded, so that people can go back and watch and get a whole bunch of detail whenever they need it. But we also want to have those short 5-minute overviews available in a non-paid way that we can push out through social media and through our newsletter, as just a way to kind of get that information out. Nobody's going to have time to sit through and watch a 30-minute video on social media. So that's the purpose of it. Hope it works. That will be starting in a few weeks at our next Tech Huddle. But this Tech Huddle, we have Scott from GrandCare, who's going to be giving us an overview of GrandCare. So with that said, just a reminder, if you have questions for Scott, go ahead and throw it in the chat box. And Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Dustin, and welcome to everyone. I'm glad that you invited us to do this. So actually what I planned on doing may not be all that different from what you had in mind for the future. So let me just go over, I promise I have a very small number of slides just to introduce GrandCare, the company, and the product before we start to take a deeper dive. So I'm Scott Feldstein from GrandCare Systems. We're from Wisconsin, and we make technology. Let's get into it. About GrandCare, we're not new, we're not in beta. We've been around for many years. There have been thousands and thousands of people who have used GrandCare in their homes and in other settings. I'm going to skip around here a bit just to save some time. We do sell to private homes, that is, individuals, in their 50s, my age, maybe that call up and say, I'm concerned about my aging mom or dad, or maybe they're concerned about another relative who has a disability at home, and they want to have some technology to do some remote monitoring and some other things to support that person. GrandCare is available in the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and some other countries as well, and we're always looking to expand. I spoke to somebody in Mexico yesterday. So what do we do? I like to say that GrandCare helps you stay safe, healthy, and connected. And by that I mean safe because we use something that we call activity monitoring. And this is motion sensors, door sensors, temperature sensors, so that we can have some idea of the activity or lack thereof in that residence. So we know about the door activity, know about motion that happens in different locations. We know maybe what the indoor temperature is. And so we can have, we can know a lot about what's going on there. That keeps you safe. Keeps you healthy because GrandCare does things like medication reminders. It reminds you to take your medication when it's the right time to do that. But it also does something called telehealth, which is that GrandCare, if a person is managing a chronic health condition at home, they have diabetes, or they have heart failure, or they have some other chronic condition that they have to take their vitals every day, or maybe even more than once a day. And so with GrandCare, they can take those readings, they can take their blood glucose or their blood pressure, or whatever it is, and those readings are automatically recorded on the GrandCare and put in your chart. But more than that, if those readings are not right, if they're too high, if they're too low, or you forget to take them at all, GrandCare will let the appropriate people know so that they can support you on that. And then finally, GrandCare keeps you connected through features that we call socialization features. It's the exchange of letters and messages and photos and even video calls directly to the GrandCare touchscreen that goes into the person's home. And you can make those calls, you can make and receive those calls from any PC, laptop, iPhone, what have you, right to the GrandCare touchscreen from wherever you are. Hardware. At the point of care, GrandCare is a large, easy to use, easy to read touch screen. There's no keyboard, there's no mouse, you don't need any of the other stuff. You just touch what you want to do, and it's very, very simple to do. It also works in conjunction with optional motion sensors and door sensors that we talked about. And then also those health devices that you might need if you're managing a chronic health condition. Just weight scale, glucometer, blood pressure monitor, and a fingertip pulse oximeter. And then what do you need at the other end? What do you need at the caregiving end? Well, nothing really. You just need to use the equipment that you already have. Any PC or laptop that can run a Chrome browser can participate in every feature of GrandCare, including the video call feature that we'll talk about in a little bit. And if you're an organization that has more than one GrandCare in your world, it's one thing to be a retail GrandCare customer and to have access to one GrandCare unit. And that keeps things pretty simple. When you log into the caregiver's web portal, you just see the one, and that's pretty simple. But what if you're an organization that maybe you're an in-home care organization and you might have 50 or 100 GrandCares in your world? What happens then? Well, then you get more of this dashboard view that you can kind of get a sense of here with these data-driven graphs and charts and things like that. And we can get into that more if anyone's curious about that. And that's it. That's all I wanted to do to talk about a brief introduction of GrandCare, the company, and what our product is. Is there any questions so far?
I am not seeing any come in yet, Scott, so you're good.
Well, great.
Yep.
I guess that means that I'm making sense so far.
Thank you for doing the 5-minute overview. That was perfect. And we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, that was a great coincidence. Okay. So this is a GrandCare touchscreen. It's the same thing that we just looked at on the slide. Now in GrandCare, we use like a 17.3-inch touchscreen. So it's, bigger than your laptop, but smaller than your TV. And it goes into a residence where somebody lives, and it does all the things for them that we talked about. It keeps them safe, it keeps them healthy, it keeps them connected. And here you can see this GrandCare is showing, when you're not touching GrandCare, which is most of the time, it'll just show a slideshow. And that'll be pictures that others have shared with you, or other features that you want in your slideshow, like your schedule, what you're supposed to be doing. GrandCare will periodically pop up with reminders to tell you that it's time to do something. And here we go, there's today's schedule. And you can see kind of where I am in my day. I've brushed my teeth, I've fed the cat, a little bit later I'm gonna eat lunch. And as my day progresses, I just touch those, check them off with my fingertip, real simple. We'll get back to that in a minute. Here's the caregiver's end of this GrandCare. And there's many things that we can do here. We can even show the touch screen, which is actually what I'm doing right here, to emulate what that touch screen looks like. We could even initiate a video call right here from my web browser to that GrandCare. I can't answer it because I'm already on a video call, but just for the sake of argument, I'm gonna just make a call. And there it comes through. Very simple. And we can also do something, we can open the care menu. That's this little menu here. So there's a lot of things that we can do here, and I want to show you just a few of them. Number one is we have this button here for wellness, and that's where we can look at my friend Justin's wellness readings. If I'm a caregiver and I need to know what his wellness readings are. Now, in reality, a person would only generally have one of these devices. Maybe they would have two. But in this case, for the sake of demonstration, I have several. And I can come in here and I can maybe look at Justin's blood pressure if I want to. There's this chart for his blood pressure, or maybe I can, if I'd rather look at the graph, I can do that. Blood pressure looks pretty good. And I could do that if I want to, but the real power of GrandCare is not that. It's this. I can make a rule to have GrandCare reach out to me if a certain condition is met. In this case, if Justin's blood pressure is greater than 160 over something, then you're to call me and let me know that. And GrandCare will do that. It'll call me right on my phone and say, this is GrandCare. I'm calling about this particular installation and this condition has been met. Or if Justin forgets to take his oxygen reading, he's supposed to do it every morning. If he hasn't done it by noon, then it's going to send him an additional message to the screen for just a few minutes. And it's real simple. These rules apply not just to health stuff, as you'll see in a minute. They apply to activity, like if there's no motion in Justin's kitchen by 11 a.m., then it should tell someone, because that would be weird and somebody might want to look in on that. And how do those rules work? Let's just make a new one. We'll say if Justin's weight, or let's say if Justin's glucose is greater than, oh goodness, I don't even know what would be a proper glucose reading. I'm not a medical person. Let's just say if it's greater than 85. I have no idea if that's right. There's a nurse in the audience right now who's gasping. So then what do I want GrandCare to do in this condition? Well, I could have it maybe send an email, or make a phone call, or send a text message, or as we talked about before, it could just maybe send a message to Justin's screen if I wanted to. So if his glucose is too high, then I wanted to send an email. Now, to whom do I want to send it? Well, I could maybe send it to everyone, or I could just maybe select just to send it to me. And now once I've created that rule, I don't have to come in here and look at Justin's glucose readings. I don't have to do that. I could, if I want to, come in and look at the chart if I want to, and just kind of eyeball it and ask myself, does that look good or not? But the real power of GrandCare is that I don't have to. GrandCare is a no news is good news type of operation. So if you don't hear from GrandCare, it's all good. And that to me seems like a very least intrusive way to provide that person support. And I know that's really important for a lot of people. Let's talk about activity. Or maybe we should talk about medication for a minute here first. See, Justin's on a couple of medications, I think. And yeah, so he's got medications, and those medications have schedules, and there'll be a reminder on the screen for Justin to take his medication at the appropriate time. And I can have rules about those medications too, if I'd like. Oh, you know, the demonstration gods are never smiling on me at all times.
You gotta love the joy of a live demo, right?
All right, that's it. Then that's it. So I could have medication. So if Justin forgets to take his medication, then I could have it let me know that. And when the medication reminder happens, it gives a button on the screen to touch, yes, I've taken my medication. So if he doesn't push that button, I can have GrandCare let me know that. Now, I can also exchange letters with Just here. I can maybe go into letters and compose a letter and say that I want to send it to Justin as opposed to all these other caregivers that we have. And I could just give it a subject and a body. Then I could send it. Well, what do you know? Looks like we have a new letter. And there's our letter that we could look at, and or maybe we could even reply to it if we'd like to. And again, you do that all just on the touch screen. There's no need for a keyboard to plug into it. You can just do it right on the touch screen. Since we're here at the touch screen, let's take a break from the caregiver side and look at what the GrandCare touch screen really looks like. So up here you can see I've got the time, and if I touch it, I can get a nice analog clock. I have the weather, and if I touch it, I can get a nice forecast here for my location. And then below that, I have something called the main menu, and this is really where all the action happens. That exposes all the buttons that my caregivers have chosen to have for me on my GrandCare. And you can see that there's that schedule that I've got to remind me what to do at certain times. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, or maybe we'll just talk about it now since we're looking at it. So you can see that I have these activities that I'm to do, and it just kind of keeps me on track. And when it's time for that thing to happen, GrandCare is going to come up with a little message. It's going to say it's time to eat your lunch, and I'm going to touch it to say, yes, I've done that. So it just helps keep me oriented. The other thing that we have going on here is sometimes, especially people with cognitive disabilities, they can do things for themselves, even things that have multiple steps and are a little bit more complicated. They can do them, but they may require a level of prompting for them to be successful. And of course, you could do that by standing in the room with them in their house and prompting them to do the task that they need to do. But they don't want that, and we don't want that. And so we'd rather support them with technology. And here we have something called an activity reminder. And this is just like these other activities, only when it's time for this to happen, a different thing comes up. And I'm going to explain it to you before I touch it, because once I touch it, it's going to be kind of automatic. Excuse me. What happens is when it's time for that activity, GrandCare is going to show me an enumerated list of steps that I'm to do to achieve this task. And it's going to actually read them to me as well. And in addition to that, I could check them off with my finger as I do each one. And then when it's done reading to me all these steps, it's actually going to automatically play a video of that task. And this one is just an example, but ideally the video would be of Justin doing this task in his own house with his own things. So here, let's take a look. And I can check these off. And then this video automatically plays. Now, and this is just an example, but like I said, ideally it would be just Justin achieving that task in his own home with his own stuff. Any questions about that?
So I'm assuming obviously all of those steps can be customized, and the videos and images are all customizable based upon that person's needs, right?
Exactly so. In fact, let's just really quickly take a look at where you do that. Here I'm looking at Justin's account, and if I go to the caregiving tab, there's his caregivers, here's some care notes, here's the activity reminder that we just looked at. So it's got 8 steps, it's recurring. I can actually click on it to see where you do these things. We've uploaded a video for it. We've created these steps. We could change any of these things if we want to. And then it's on a schedule. So it recurs every weekday at 8:15 a.m. So back to our touchscreen for a minute. So there's more things going on here. You can see Justin's letters that we kind of looked at already. There's some games that he might play that are pretty popular with people. There's also this, I want to skip over something and just talk about the services button, because I think it's really important. People with disabilities and seniors and other people who are trying to remain independent at home, they often need services brought to them. And so they might use the GrandCare touchscreen to get those things. And here's how that works. So maybe I need a ride somewhere. I could just touch the car service button, and I could say that I need a ride tomorrow in the afternoon to go to the, why I'm in all caps there. And then I could send that request. And what happens when I do that is whatever address I specified for that service. And well, I don't usually, but just for the sake of argument, I think this goes to my personal email, which I literally use for almost nothing else. And then I'll get an email. There we go. And it's going to tell me that Justin has made this request for this service, his address and all the details of what he would like to do. And I, the vendor, can just click this button in my email to confirm that. And I click that button, it takes me to this web page. And it's important to know that I, the service provider, do not need to have any kind of login or account made for me. All I need is to click the button in my email. Here's all the information about what Justin is asking for. And I can confirm, yeah, I can do that for you. I'll pick you up at 1:15 and I'll drop you back off maybe at, I don't know, 2:15. And I could leave a little note if I'd like to, and then just confirm that service. Now, what happens on the touchscreen is in about 30-ish seconds or so, we'll get a little notification down here and a little sound will play to indicate that that service has been confirmed. And of course, it will also go into my schedule for tomorrow, which we'll see in a minute. But it's important to know too that this might be somebody that works for your agency or your organization. It might be somebody out in the wider community, a third party that you trust to provide the services for this individual. Now, this is used a lot in like a senior housing community where they might have a salon or a barber shop or other things on campus that they want people to make those appointments with. Or so here's my notification. I have a new concierge message. There, my service has been confirmed. Great. Let's see now if everything's gone according to plan. If I went to tomorrow, oh yeah, see, I'm there. I am going to the grocery store. And if you have questions, just type them into chat. Otherwise, I'm just gonna keep on talking.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
As I'm looking at it, there's a lot of, there's a awesome amount of options for the person that's receiving the service. Obviously, some of the people that may be utilizing this may not need access to letters or wellness or et cetera. So I'm assuming that you guys can kind of customize the layout of what options are available to the person.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, many GrandCare installations have 3 buttons on them because those are the only ones they need.
Okay.
So it really just depends on what that person needs and wants. Yeah, good question.
Yep. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. In the case of an on-site caregiver, so GrandCare is about remote supports, right? It's about supporting that person remotely. But what if you do have somebody on site? What does GrandCare offer to them when they're there at the point of care looking at the touchscreen? Well, it depends. If you would like to have this caregiving button, what you do is you just you clock in, as I've done with a 4-digit PIN, and from there I might look at what is the caregiver supposed to do in this instance. I might have to do some light housework or make a meal or do some toileting or whatever it is that I have to do. And this is the caregiver's to-do list, just to make that clear. And as I go through my shift, I will check off these tasks. And of course, that's all reportable back on the back end so that care managers can know what their caregivers are doing when they're on site. But in addition to that, I could also look at the care notes to see what people on a previous shift have had to say about their time when they were at this point of care. And I can, of course, make my own note if I'd like to at the end of my own shift. So that's what the caregiving button is for. And when I'm done and I'm leaving that residence, I would just clock out. And of course, that's all documented for my bosses to know that I was there and did certain things and then I left. Other things going on, of course, Justin can browse these photos if he would like to, just on demand if he wants to do that. Or he can just wait for them to show up in the slideshow. And if Justin wants to look at his own wellness data, we can put that button on here as well. If you can look at, see his own blood pressure, maybe. If you'd like to do that.
Hey, Scott, question for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If there are more than one individual in the home, how would the wellness thing work, or schedules, or how do you manage that? If there's more than one individual in the home with multiple schedules, multiple wellness data, which obviously should be a little bit protected, how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, so it's a funny story. I was asked that exact question by the FDA. There was a number of years ago, GrandCare had the ability to do multiple residents on a single touch screen. And then we got asked some very pointed questions from people doing the CE mark in Europe and the FDA in the United States. And they seemed pretty unhappy with that state of affairs. So as a result, for a number of years now, we've gone to a single touchscreen, single user type of philosophy. Ironically, things have changed since then, and they're no longer as concerned about that state of affairs. And also, I'm getting a lot of feedback from especially senior housing communities where you have husband and wife in the same apartment, obviously, who both want to use GrandCare. So we're in the process right now of introducing a 2-user, 1 touchscreen model that will make everybody happy. But right now, as it stands, it's just 1 person, and that's how we deal with that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Sure. I wanted to show one other thing. Well, maybe more than one other thing. But real quickly, I wanted to take a look at the activity monitoring that we do. Now, I've switched over to Charlie's GrandCare. Charlie's the founder of GrandCare, and he's had a GrandCare in his own home for many years. And one of the things I like to do, I'm not sure if he knows this or not, but I like to do is I like to see what he's up to. So I go and look at his activity tab, and he's got a whole lot of sensors all over his house. Usually a GrandCare user would have 1 or 2, like a motion sensor. Like my dad has a motion sensor in his kitchen, and it only does one thing for me. It just calls me if it doesn't see him moving around in the morning. That's it. That's all I need it to do. In this case, Charlie has a whole bunch of stuff. And what I like to do especially is take a look at his office. Why do I like to do that? Because I want to see if he's been up late working or not. Oh, it looks like maybe he was. But really, again, like with the health related rules, the real power of GrandCare comes in not in snooping on Charlie's graph. It's the fact that I can make a rule for it, right? So I can make a rule that says if there's any motion in Charlie's office between, I don't know, let's say 11:45 p.m. to 12:45 a.m. Then what I want it to do is send a message to the screen for 2 minutes, I guess, and we'll say, maybe I should remind him to go to bed, actually, if I see that. But you see how that works, right? So I could maybe get alerted to that motion or lack of motion if I want to, or I could maybe send a message to the screen if I need to. There's a great story. I don't often get a chance to do GrandCare installations because most of the people that use GrandCare don't live in my town or near enough to do that. They live all over the country and in some cases other countries entirely. But every now and then I get a chance to do one. And I had a chance to do one in a nearby, the capital of Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin, which is not too far from here. And I had a chance to do an installation there, and it was a great one because I learned a lot. For example, this woman she was a nice old lady, lived in her house by herself, and she had a habit of going out her garage door, the little garage door that you use for your car, going out of her house, the garage door every day to get her mail. And then she would come back in that same way. The only problem is that a lot of times she would be forgetting to close that garage door. So what do? Well, I put a door sensor on that garage door, contact sensor, so that if that door was open for more than 20 minutes, then it would let somebody know that. So that's what we did. We had it so that if it was open for 30 minutes, then it would call the daughter, and the daughter would call mom, and she would say, I think you've left the door open. Can you please shut it? But it turned out after a while, they got pretty annoyed at that state of affairs. And so what we did instead is, if the door's open for 30 minutes, then send a message to the screen. Mom, I think you've forgotten to close the garage door. It gives mom a chance to recover on her own without anyone else getting involved. And then if the door's open for 45 minutes, then you go ahead and call the daughter, right? Then she maybe really needs the support. Everyone seems much happier with that. With GrandCare, less is more. We only want to do just what you need to have done to support you.
That's really neat. We have a couple of questions that just came in as you were starting to talk about the installation. Who does the installation for those, in the individual's home, in the client's home?
Yeah, great question. So if I sell a GrandCare to a civilian, just a person who calls on the phone and says, I'm concerned about somebody in my family, then what we do is we do as much of that configuration as we can before we even ship them any equipment. So if there's a motion sensor or a health device, I'll make sure that it's paired and named and labeled with that GrandCare touchscreen before I put it in the box and send it. That way, when these people get it, it's a pretty DIY. You know, if you have a motion sensor that says kitchen, well, you know where to put it. And we do a little phone support with you to make sure that everything is looking good. And of course, we can see that GrandCare remotely, so we can help you do that installation. But that's not ideal. What we really like to do is to get into those private homes through an in-home care company. And in that case, the people that work for that company do that installation. And they've done them before, so they know exactly what they're doing. They've done all that configuration in the home office before they even drive out to the person's home, so that they can set this up in 10 or 15 minutes. They get the touch screen on the Wi-Fi, they place the sensors and teach the person maybe how to use their health device. The end. They've already scheduled their medications and other reminders before they even left to go into the home.
So typically it's a train the trainer type concept where you're working with a local provider agency and you're training them how to do it. And then that makes sense.
Yeah, actually, around the first of the year, I spent about 3 months. My background is in e-learning. I was at Marquette University for 15 years doing technology there. And so when my boss is here, we used to do in-person training for up to a dozen people at a time. And you would come to us, or we could come to you, and we would do a classroom style 3-day training to teach you how to do absolutely all the things that GrandCare can do. And that's fun, and we still do that on occasion. But what I did around the first of the year is I put all of that training online. So it's a lot more convenient. You can burn through it in 2 or 3 afternoons. It's a lot of video instruction, so it's a lot of me walking you through how to do all the things like we do in a demo. So we do have online training, and so if I sell GrandCare to an in-home care company, and they're maintaining a fleet of 50 or 100 GrandCares, then they have staff that go through that online training, so they know exactly what they're doing.
Great, thank you. Another question: does it integrate with Alexa or Google Home or any?
So
yeah,
that's a great question. So a lot of the people here at GrandCare have Alexa in their homes. I have Google Home, and I like it. It's neat. I have it controlling all my lights and playing music on my stereo and all that stuff. But I will say this: it's not good enough yet. Is our frank opinion, and that's not to say that in a year, 18 months, maybe they will be. But I just don't think, when I think about a lot of the people that use GrandCare, not just people with disabilities, but average age of a GrandCare user is 85 years old.
Yeah.
And
sense.
if you go home and talk to your Alexa, ask yourself if that age demographic is going to be successful there. And I think the answer is probably not yet.
Okay.
In addition to that, I'm not sure that we want to be sharing information with those sources. But I will say this, though, it's a no-brainer that ultimately I want to talk to GrandCare and I want it to talk to me. So I think that's definitely where we're heading one way or another.
Okay, very neat. Last question, if anybody else out there has any questions, we're a little over time, but that's kind of why we've, again, transitioned to this 30-minute session here. So if you have any other questions, feel free to throw them in there. But obviously, the question we usually get in these is, what does it cost? Equipment and monthly service, and what's pricing structure look like?
You bet. So GrandCare is available. The touchscreen itself is right now, our summer pricing is $395, and of course there's a monthly service charge that goes along with that to do backups, of course, that we have to do and keep forever and ever because there's personal health information on it and so on. Software updates, and also all the call outs, all the phone calls and text messages cost money, so it covers that as well. And so for a retail installation for GrandCare, that's $49 a month. And if we sell to an agency who's doing any kind of volume, then that monthly fee goes down. In fact, do I have that somewhere? I think I might even have that up right now. I can't get to my, yeah, there we go. I actually made this this calculator the other day because somebody was asking me about how this works for like an in-home care company. Here you can see your volume discounts. So if you have, if you're going to have 55 GrandCares, then your monthly is $18 a month per unit, right? Here's that $395 summer special pricing that we're doing. You can see I've configured these installations to have a motion sensor and so on. It's really kind of neat, actually. If I can figure out a way to get this back up here. Oh no. Hard to navigate this.
Too many things open, right? Yeah.
Yep. And then you can see, you know, so what are these agencies actually charging for this? Maybe they're $150 a month to do the monitoring they do, and this is how they make money doing that. I know that's maybe of marginal interest to this group, but that's kind of how that works.
Okay, so
is no one going to ask me about the talking dog? Nobody wants to know about that at all.
Well, yeah, of course we have to see the talking dog.
All right, real quick, because a really nice elderly woman had to show me the talking dog on her GrandCare because her family put it there just to make her laugh, and now I include it in just about all my demos. This is just any YouTube video that you find, you can put on there.
And for some reason, I'm not getting the sound. I'll shut up in case everybody else is, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. But in any case, it's just a funny video about a dog that's talking to his owner.
Yeah, way to personalize
but that's it.
Right? Yeah, cool. Very neat. Well, it looks like it's come a long way since I saw it back in, I think it was 2007 when I first took a look.
Yeah.
So it's been a while, but it looks great.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to share it.
Yeah. Any other questions real quick, throw them in there. Otherwise, we do not have a second presenter again. We're kind of going to this just one presenter a week format. And we do not have a tech huddle next week. I'm actually going to be taking a week or so off here to kind of unwind and unplug for a bit with the family at a lake. And so our next tech huddle, I believe, is on the 6th of August. And that is going to be LifeZest. LifeZest is a brand new, almost similar to Disability Cocoon, but they're geared more very specifically to providers and individuals themselves and how technology can be utilized. And it's an online resource. So I wanted to invite those guys on in the spirit of, we are just here to share everything. So join us next week. I do have a request here. Can you send the link? Okay, Donald, I will reach out to you. But thank you all for joining the Tech Huddle today. Again, this is recorded. Just go to disabilitycocoon.com, and it is in the online Tech Fest is where you can find access to this recorded Tech Huddle and all the past ones as well. So Scott, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to work, and everybody else can get back to work. And
thanks, Dustin. Thanks, everybody.
Talk to everybody in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.